You're watching Steve TV.
And they put a steelhead boat directly on top of that. And the design, as simple as it was, actually turned out to work fabulously well. The reasons for that are pretty simple. They've retained a low centre of gravity. And what that means is that it can go on some pretty severe inclines and things like that, and it handles better. Also, you'll be able to see the propeller and rudder, which we'll be using.
So beautiful, this forest is just gorgeous.
And as you can see at the back of that army duck, some of them leak, which is alright because we have 3 bulge pumps.
Quack.
Alrighty. This is actually the first item on our list. Did anybody grab an information sheet? Oh, we did. Oh, we did too. Okay, this is number 1. Eleriana, also known as the corkwood tree. We're very creative. We call it a corkwood tree because the bark looks like cork. This plant is the host plant for the Ulysses butterfly. And let's just cue a release of the cage at the back and hopefully we'll spot one. Yeah, it doesn't work, unfortunately. The Ulysses butterfly is actually a lot more iridescent blue. When you see it in real life, that's a pretty poor representation of it. Not only is it important for the Ulysses butterfly, it's also pretty important for us. Basically, if you go for a major operation, you'll be given muscle relaxants, and those muscle relaxants will probably be derived from this tree. Also,
You said the coke tree.
derived from this tree.
Right.
Yeah. What did you think I said?
Coke.
Coke tree.
Yeah.
No, it's not that kind of tree.
What's the muscle relaxants? Where do they come into?
A lot of different drugs get derived from this plant. I don't actually know enough about it, but my partner's a medical scientist, and she says...
Can we pick some?
Yeah, you can try if you want. Medicinal use drugs, not mind altering. And also, currently in testing is treatments, cures, but treatments for HIV and tuberculosis coming from this tree. So it's got a lot of applications for medicine.
What's that?
Corkwood tree, or corkwood,
Oh.
Corkwood.
or Eleriana.
False alarm. Travel all over the countryside, ask Vic and Steve.
And just here, we've also got some native Australian gingers. Berries are edible, but also the roots are just like a ginger. You can eat them.
Wow, I've got one growing on my balcony in Melbourne.
Yeah?
Yeah.
That's good. Does that taste any good?
I bought it from the supermarket and planted it and started growing it, so don't know yet.
As you may notice, we're going into the rainforest. There was a sign back there which said we're neighbouring on the Wet Tropics World Heritage Listed region. And also, we're right at the end of the wet season. I think we're just about out of it now. So what that means is you might think it rains all the time. Well, kind of. During the wet season, we'll probably get about 80% of our annual rainfall in about 2 months of the year. And during the dry season, we'll get about 20% of our annual rainfall for the other 10 months of the year. That's a pretty drastic difference. And wet season is actually what happened to these trees that have fallen over right beside us. Basically, it rained a lot, and the soil got very soft. And then those trees fell over. That's actually a really important part of the rainforest. trees will get recycled, turned into other plants and animals and things like that. But that process of recycling is very, very, very important for our rainforest. And one of the main animals that does that for us is termites.
A lot of noise going on here in the forest, isn't there?
Yeah, that's the Pamagiri dancers. Yep. Yeah, they're doing a dance show at the moment. So at times it's hard to give a tour here because they're doing a dance show. So as I was saying, termites are really, really important for the rainforest. They'll eat out dead trees as well as live ones. And it kind of doesn't make a lot of sense to say, well, they're really important for the rainforest. You know, our idea of termites is they eat wood and we use wood to build our homes, so it's not a good thing. In the rainforest, because of the wet season, it eats a lot of the things that are breaking down anyway. But in the wet season, a lot of things will get washed out into the ocean. So say, for example, leaves, logs, even big chunks of dirt will all get washed out into the ocean. And those nutrients that are contained in all of that, they don't come back. It's not like water. It doesn't evaporate and rain back onto us. It just stays in the ocean. So absolutely anything that can break down nutrients and distribute it through the rainforest before it washes out into the ocean is pretty critical to having all this around us. Which I think is pretty cool. Such a small creature. It also can be used to make a musical instrument.
Didgeridoo.
Exactly, we can hear it right now, the didgeridoo. We'll just move forward a bit so I can see a better example, but that log is hollow. And also you can see some part of an internal side of the termite's nest underneath it. As we come around this corner, 10 points to anybody who can spot the dinosaur food. It's not us, by the way.
Tree fern. I get 10 points. The tree fern.
That gentleman beside us picked it. It was the giant tree fern. Directly above us. As a species, these plants are about 110 million years old. They're a very old style of plant. There's lots of different ferns and they're all very, very old. I haven't seen that before. There's a little elkhorn fern growing on this tree fern. It's only about this big. Anyway, it's another fern that we'll talk about later. The reason that we know that these plants, the reason that we know we can eat these plants, the dinosaur food, is because we can eat them as well. If you want to climb all the way to the top, find a new leaf and then you cut it off, put that leaf into fire, burn off all its hairs, and then you put it into boiling water. And I don't know the amount of time that you put it in boiling water for, but you need to boil out the poisons. And once you've boiled out the poisons, you can eat it yourself. The taste description that I've been given is it's like asparagus with an aftertaste of cabbage.
Ooh.
Delicious.
Is that like kimchi?
Can you get it at Coles?
Kimchi is amazing.
Oh, it's awful.
I love kimchi.
Oh.
But yeah, if you would like to try giant tree fern, do make sure it actually is giant tree fern. If, for example, you try this plant here, which is known as black tree fern, there's a couple of subtle differences. Firstly, the trunk is black. Secondly, it's got a different texture. It doesn't have the scaly pattern. If you eat that one, unfortunately, you're going to hospital. Very important difference. You can do it. Be brave.
What are you on?
That it?
What are you on?
Just down there, you'll be able to see some trees that have fallen over. And just to the left of that, you can see that there's a tree that's absolutely covered in this palm tree. It's actually a climbing plant. It's a pioneer species. As soon as trees have fallen over, they create more sunlight. And the quickest growing plant is usually the first to capitalise on that. They're known as a pioneer species. So that palm-like plant, it's grown up and tried to take all the sunlight for itself. potentially smother the plant underneath, in which case that plant would eventually collapse. Alrighty, let's talk about dangerous plants. Do you guys at the back know this plant? Just here? Oh, fair enough.
What with the little flowers on it?
Yeah, with the little pinkish purple flowers. No, this is known as a stinging tree. It's number 13 on the sheet if you're interested. Basically, it's pretty horrible to touch. What happens is, say for example, if you grab a leaf, silica fibres, they go into your hand. Those silica fibres, they have a poison. Once they're irritated, they release that poison. So basically what that means is for the first 3 days after grabbing that leaf, it feels like you put your hand on the hot exhaust of a car and you can't take it off. Yeah, luckily that pain goes away, thank goodness for the victim. But the silica fibres, and there's still poison left in those silica fibres, are still in your hand. So anytime you grab onto something, or there's a temperature change, so you put your hand into a cold stream of air, they're going to get irritated again, they're going to release more poison. So it's not as extreme, thankfully, but it's recurring. I've been told the next level of pain is kind of like gravel rash. So it's not as extreme, yeah, but still pretty painful. Luckily, there's a few silver linings. Firstly, there's no known cure. You just have to kind of ride it out. Secondly, the fruit, it will actually become edible. It tastes a little bit like bland watermelon. It's also considered not worth the risk, which is why we at Rainforest Station actually know what it tastes like. And thirdly, I'm not sure. But native species can deal with this plant quite well. So say for example possums, kangaroos, wallabies, things like that, they'll quite happily even eat the leaf and it will not hurt them. But introduced species, so say for example cats, dogs, even humans, they deal with this plant very badly. And if for example you have a very weak heart, you're quite elderly, the poison in those leaves could actually give you a heart attack. Yeah.